People are after me. Just imagine hearing those exact words from someone you know. Or picture a patient walking into a clinic in the dead of winter, totally terrified, and saying that. It's chilling, right? Well, in December 2024, a 39-year-old man walked into a hospital in Drogheda, Ireland, and uttered that exact haunting phrase to the medical staff. He was vulnerable, sure, but according to literally everyone who knew him, he had so much to live for. Yet, after delivering this terrifying message, he just left the building. And then, he vanished. No trace, no clothing left behind. Absolutely nothing.
Okay, let's dive into this explainer. We're looking at the completely baffling vanishing of Anthony Hanlon. To really grasp the gravity of this case, we first need to understand exactly who we're looking for. Anthony Hanlon was 39 years old. He was originally from the Ferryman's Crossing area over in Dublin 1, but at the time, he was living in temporary accommodation in Drogheda. Physically, he's about 5'7", slim build, and he's got some very distinct features, most notably a highly noticeable scar right across his forehead from a childhood accident, and he was balding with auburn hair. But, beyond just the physical description, everything we've looked at paints a picture of a guy who was quiet and genuinely well-liked by his community. He was always traveling around Drogheda, RD, and Dublin. He was a familiar face, people really cared about him. And honestly, his story highlights just how terrifyingly easy it can be for a real person to just slip through the cracks. Now, what's absolutely fascinating and really heartbreaking is the glaring contradiction here. On one hand, Anthony's life was on this incredible upward trajectory. He was putting in the hard work, successfully getting off all drugs, finding deep, genuine solace in his religious faith. And, get this, he was literally just 4 days away from moving into a brand new cottage. 4 days. This is a guy actively building his future, not someone planning an escape. But then, bam, that hope is just shattered. The regular communication his family relied on stopped. Entirely out of the blue, he was officially reported missing on November 26th, even though his absolute last sighting in Drogheda was days later on December 3rd. It just doesn't add up. Why on earth would a man on the verge of a total fresh start just completely sever all ties? So, to get a sense of his mindset, let's trace his movements during those final days. And honestly, it's incredibly erratic. Just look at the geographic spread. In a super tight window of time, Anthony showed up at 4 totally different medical facilities across the country. He starts way down south at University College Cork. Then, he pops up at the Mater Hospital in Dublin. Next thing you know, he's visiting a 24-hour doctor. And finally, he ends up at Cross Lanes in Drogheda. At every single one of these stops, his message was exactly the same. He told medical professionals he was in grave danger, literally saying people were after him. The authorities knew he was in a highly vulnerable state. But the massive, haunting question here is the who and the why. Who was he so terrified of? And right here is where the story takes its absolute most bizarre turn yet. Despite that frantic, terrifying dash between hospitals, the absolute last confirmed trace we have of Anthony Hanlon isn't of a man in a blind panic. On December 3rd, 2024, literally the exact same day as his final hospital appointment, CCTV captures him right in the bustling heart of Dublin. He's at a permanent TSB bank on O'Connell Street, casually withdrawing some cash. And the detail that just blows my mind? He's holding a simple coffee cup. He doesn't look stressed out. He doesn't look like a guy running for his life or frantically looking over his shoulder. He just makes his transaction, turns away from the ATM, and melts right into the thick Dublin crowds. 0. That is the exact number of bank transactions Anthony has made since he walked away from that ATM on O'Connell Street. 0. And it's also the exact number of confirmed mobile phone pings the authorities have picked up. For 18 whole months, the digital trail has been completely 100% dead. Think about that for a second. In our hyper-connected world today, going totally off the grid without leaving a single digital fingerprint, that's nearly impossible. It pretty much never happens unless you've meticulously planned your exit or, tragically, unless something terrible has happened. Naturally, the authorities escalated things incredibly fast. They set up a major incident room at the Drogheda Garda station, brought in a senior investigating officer, the whole 9 yards. They launched this massive, highly coordinated search effort, focusing really heavily on the River Boyne. We're talking over 50 volunteers and civil defense personnel out there, spending countless hours combing the freezing water. They searched a huge stretch, all the way from the curly hole at Old Bridge right out to the mouth of the river at Baltray. And they weren't just using their eyes. They brought in cutting-edge sonar and thermal imaging tech. They scanned the deep water, the banks, looking for literally any anomaly. But despite this massive, high-tech operation, the river gave them absolutely nothing. No clothing, no personal effects, nothing.
Driven by sheer desperation, Anthony's family has actually put up a massive €20,000 reward for any information leading to his whereabouts. That kind of financial plea really shows you just how agonizingly stalled this investigation is. The Garda have been surprisingly transparent with the family, coming right out and officially admitting that they are just totally baffled by the complete lack of evidence. In fact, because the circumstances are so strange and his digital footprint just vanished into thin air, detectives have officially upgraded the case classification to suspicious. It's this grim, heavy reality hanging over everyone involved.
You know, behind all these maps and timelines and police reports, there is a real family living through an absolute nightmare. Anthony's sister, Jessica Hanlon, has been an absolute driving force in keeping his name out there in a public eye. And the way she sums up this tragedy is it's completely heartbreaking. She said there is just no sign of Anthony and no explanation. None of his clothing has been found, nothing. It perfectly captures the massive void he left behind. It's that sheer lack of physical evidence, not even a dropped wallet or a discarded jacket, that makes this whole thing so agonizing for the people who love him. Every single day is just this endless waiting game.
So, the crucial point we really have to look at now is how we process the different theories floating around out there. If we step back and apply a detective's logic to the facts, we've got to start with the possibility of suicide. But investigators and his family consider this highly unlikely. The evidence against it is super strong. He had this newfound religious faith, he was completely clean off drugs, and again, he literally had the keys to a new cottage waiting for him in 4 days. Okay, what about a voluntary disappearance? Well, that falls apart pretty quickly too. He made absolutely zero preparations to vanish, and remember, his bank accounts have been totally untouched for 18 long months. You need money to survive off the grid. So realistically, that leaves us with the third theory, foul play. It's the scenario his family highly suspects, especially when you remember those frantic hospital visits where he kept saying people were after him. But the incredibly frustrating hurdle? There is absolutely zero forensic evidence or witnesses to back it up.
Which brings us to the ultimate, truly haunting question of this explainer. How does a man leave an ATM on a super busy Dublin street holding a simple coffee cup and just melt into the crowd forever? It completely defies all logic. Listen, someone, somewhere, knows exactly what happened that afternoon on O'Connell Street. Someone knows where Anthony Hanlon went after that camera stopped rolling. Authorities are practically begging anyone with even the tiniest detail to contact the Garda confidential line. Because until that silence is finally broken, the baffling vanishing of Anthony Hanlon is going to remain one of the most perplexing mysteries we've ever covered.